The public meeting is now commencing with the consent agenda. Items number 25086 to 25103. Please note the conditions of approval as recommended by the various committees and recusals. The staff has noted Commissioner Scher's recusal from item 25094 and Commissioner Nielsen's recusal from items 25089 and 25097. Are there any other recusals that are not noted? No. For the record, there are, let the record show there are no other recusals. We have members of the public here, if I'm not mistaken. Do any members of the public wish to testify on items on the consent agenda? No, let the record show no one wishes to testify on the consent agenda. Would someone therefore make a motion to approve?
I so move.
A second? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. The consent agenda is approved. Moving on to public hearing, items 25104 and 25105. I believe that there are 3 people here to testify, one individual testifying for both, for each project. Chris Nolan is here from the Central Park Conservancy, and you will make the presentation for both, and they will follow one on the other. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Chris Nolan with the Central Park Conservancy. I'm going to present the 2 playgrounds as part of our comprehensive plan for play effort in the park. Both playgrounds are adventure-style playgrounds. Both designed by Richard Datner, who I've worked with on these projects and all adventure playgrounds since the 1990s. First up is Adventure Playground, which is the first adventure-style playground built in Central Park in the mid-1960s on West 67th Street. Just to go over some basic goals which were established as part of our plan for play, which will apply to both playgrounds. First and foremost, improving the relationship between the park and the playgrounds themselves. That's what makes them unique, is their context in Central Park, enhance the variety and quality of play experience, maximizing user accessibility, meeting the ADA requirements and where possible, exceeding them while not compromising any of the design objectives, ensuring compliance with the current safety standards. Quite importantly, on these 2 projects, preserve unique and successful aspects of the existing designs, and then to achieve those using sustainable design and construction and innovative design solutions. The West 67th Street project area is bound by Central Park West and the 67th Street entrance that comes into Tavern in the Green, which is over here. There was a 1930 set of steps that came up to the playground, and the entrance has been closed. And this is the site here, which includes some landscape development and the playground itself. The footprint of the playground was established in the 1930s as part of both playgrounds from the 1936 plan, lozenge shaped, water feature in the north end. All of the infrastructure that exists today is from this 1936 plan. You'll notice that set of steps I mentioned. There was a gate there which had closed to the public sometime in the 1970s and has been closed since. The 1966 Richard Datner plan, first style adventure playground as much as the playground is today. The water feature in the south end of the playground with that existing infrastructure. There's a circular stepped amphitheater with a runnel, central climbing area, wood pyramid, and a sand area. This area is originally sand with some climbing. Key thing is this concrete wall which goes all around the playground. Over time, the playground evolved a bit. This area was once paved in gravel, and by the early 1970s, it was paved in asphalt. And then the entrance was closed, and some of the entrances to these concrete climbers have been closed over time for security concerns. We did a major renovation in the 1990s. The significant changes were that this moved forward. We pushed the sand area forward to establish this as a consistent grade up here. This asphalt was removed, safety surfacing was put in there. It stepped down to the sand area. There was a new treehouse built, some renovations, and probably the largest element was that the wood pyramid had been rebuilt completely. The existing condition, you can see there's a perimeter wall which defines the play space and is in fact a play element itself. The stepped amphitheater, these elements which are above 30 inches will only need to be brought down to 30 inches through either a combination of raising the grade or reconstruction to make it, to obviate the need for guards at the top of them, which is an ASTM requirement. And all the way around the playground, we plan on repaving with safety surfacing and changing the cross pitch intent is to replace the existing steel picket fence with a lower fence at 4.5 feet all the way around the playground. We will remove this set of obsolete steps going up from West 67th Street. That gate is closed. We are very specific with the playground uses that a single point of entrance and exit is really critical in terms of maintaining access and safety in the playground. And then we will revegetate and re-landscape that edge with a lower fence. In cross-section, you can see the slope that comes up from Central Park West with a lower fence. The really intent is to allow plants above the fence line to get a better sense of landscape context. Within the playground itself, I'll move through each one of the elements that we're modifying. First, the water feature will be completely rebuilt in the same footprint. The difference being is that we will rebuild it with some openings which will allow handicap access into the elevated water feature. They're slightly pitched. They're not less than 5%, but more than 2%, so they're accessible. They will not require handrails. The footprint and the rise and run relationship on all of the steps will remain the same. New infrastructure and a new water feature with spray jets on the outside with the user bollard to preserve or to limit the amount of water when people are not in the playground. The runnel will be rebuilt in kind and function exactly as it does today. So you get a sense of lower fence on the outside, gets rebuilt, the spray bollard in, and you can see where these cuts are. We will do step sections where ADA access is brought into the playground, and a cross section through the ramp to the elevated water feature with the activator bollard in the center. The central area, this is a set of steps from the 1990s. We've worked on a way based on some input from the community that this was made smaller than it was in terms of height, both in terms of scale and the fact that the grade came up to do this grade change. We come up with a way using a different safety surface material to reestablish some of the height and bring this grade back to here. You can see that maintaining that grade was always an issue right from the vintage of the playground. It was a step down to the sand area, and the distance between the slide and the sand is really quite considerable. So this really shows it best. We'll be able to slope down along this face of the existing pyramid, add some skirting underneath, which will actually gain about almost 1.5 feet here. This is sand infill safety surfacing carpet, and instead of having a grade change here, we'll push it back to here with a slope. We will rebuild the climber, more massive, to kind of be consistent with the details of its era. 10-inch diameter cedar posts, and we will rebuild this concrete wall with a sand table on the back side. So the existing playground central area, this will be repaved in kind with safety surfacing to match what was there today, which is basically gray and black speckled. This is the 1990s climber. We were limited to what we could get in terms of diameter of the post. Today we can get basically 10-inch. We will be able to kind of recreate in terms of the scale and quantity of posts to the climber as it was originally, and the safety surfacing material is this brown kind of sand tone polyethylene carpet, which gets infilled with sand, so it's quite compatible and doesn't wear in any way with the sand. This wall will be rebuilt with details to match in terms of the concrete texture, the whaler tile holes. On the back side will be a cantilevered sand table, which allows access to a child with a wheelchair to gain access to the manipulative qualities of sand play. These wood elements were replaced in kind, lower than 30 inches, and this will be removed and reinstalled essentially on new timber posts to deal with the decay at the bottom. On the other end, within the concrete elements, they essentially, many of these elements have been closed over time. We've come up with ways of dealing with sand to remove them and reopen some of the access to kind of reactivate those play elements. New infrastructure allows us to remove this manhole. This was done just because there was an existing manhole, and do an infill there, remove the guard that was placed in the 90s and infill, and you can see by raising the grade on the inside, we bring that down to 30 inches, obviating the need for any kind of guards along the top edge of that. And again, reopening some of these elements. The biggest change in terms of reactivating play that was existing in the 1960s is on this conical climber. There were entrances to a tunnel that went in on an angle and up this shaft down to the slide, which had been closed pretty early on in the 1970s. We wanted to both create access that was once there, but also maintain this kind of surface where there was a linear kind of play element along the outside of the playground. You can see that the grade change actually has come up quite a bit, that there was the grade of the tunnel that was actually lower than the grade of the sand. The way we can address that is by removing the tops of the tunnels on one side, which allows the access and the linear distance from the edge in to be much more kind of top of the tunnel remains. By lowering it, it's lower than 30 inches. These steps get rebuilt so they're lower than 30 inches. We have one step there with a guardrail which kind of has symmetry on the other side. So it goes from this. This was done in the 90s. To this, where the grade is lower. There's a step here. We've actually introduced a sound tube, which kind of creates social play between children who can get into the inside at the tunnel and play on the outside. And instead of putting a slide here, we put a transfer platform, which allows a child in a wheelchair to transfer here and get up to make this an accessible elevated play element, which is important from a compliance perspective. So the two guards, which create symmetry, much like it was originally, and we now have reactivated the center element. On the outside of the playground, there's a curb that will be replaced with a new lower fence at 4.5 feet. The curb, the retainage actually changes as you move around the playground. The maximum area is on the south side of about 24 feet, which is easily screened with vegetation and plantings. It allows us to create less than or 2% cross pitch and maintain less than 30 inches so it's accessible and compliant all the way around the edge of the playground. And then it's a venture playground. Same goals on East 72nd Street playground, which is on the east side. This is a playground we had designed with consultation with Richard in the late 90s. There was more change here to the original one that was done in Adventure. The project site, East 72nd Street and 5th Avenue, this is the perimeter entrance here. The interesting thing about this playground is it's essentially generally a relatively flat area, and there's an important relationship between this landscape and the kind of pastoral landscape of the East Green. We want to see if we can improve in the relationship between the playground and the path. Again, same lozenge-shaped playground, difference being water feature to the north end of the playground. All the infrastructure will be rebuilt. When the playground was built, there was no fence around the lozenge shape. It was just bound by pipe rail fence and benches. We know that from photographs. The 1970s playground didn't have quite the same comfortable relationship between the footprint and the hard geometry of the playground itself, which is kind of defining character. There's a water feature here. And this wall, and there's kind of some really tight pinch points, which we couldn't really address in our 90s plan because of these existing trees. In our 90s plan, we renovated the central area of the playground to try to create improved sightlines, and we reworked this concrete element, which I'll be able to show you, to create ADA access. We also rebuilt the treehouse and added, as part of a kind of community interest, swings on the very south end of the playground. So the existing condition, there's a lower water feature, which we need to create access to from an ADA perspective. You can see this is the ramp that we created in the 1990s to create access to the upper elevation. This is the ramp where it transitions, and there's an interesting thing happened here. This is the vintage, or I should say the 1970s spray boiler. This is the wall that we added in the 1990s. This handrail, which is required by ADA, creates a situation where a child can actually step on the handrail, reach over the wall to the water on the other side. And we believe we can actually, by relocating this and rebuilding this, kind of restore some of the original play value and eliminate that potential hazard. You can see this upper area, there's no water or any play value in that. We want to introduce water here and rework this so it becomes accessible. Going down, rebuild this ramp so it's not a gutter, and make it accessible all the way down. Central area of the playground, we reworked the tire swings a little bit to rework the climbing elements. This remains exactly as it is today. And then this area of the playground here has some opportunity because the tree was lost in this tree house, and there's very little play value other than this very modestly scaled slide. And then there's the top swings, which were added. Both of these pieces of equipment were geared towards tops as part of the 1990s effort. Without the tree, we also have to define this playground as a 5 to 12-year-old, and there's the opportunity to rethink of these swings and add them, make them strap swings for older children. So the swing, there have been a number of trees, these trees in white have been lost through time. It gives us the opportunity to rethink the footprint of the playground and the relationship between the playground and that kind of cage feel and the access to the path and the East Green itself. This is kind of a bird's eye perspective, very strong geometry, which is really the kind of character defining element of the playground. The footprint and this kind of tight margin that exists here. We've proposed and worked out the idea that we offset the existing geometry and our rework geometry in places with a seat wall, which will have, we believe, have an interesting effect at kind of integrating the playground from a landscape perspective, from the park user's perspective, from within the playground, kind of in a figured ground way, carve out the geometry of the playground within the landscape context, emphasizing the kind of unique quality. It'll reduce the footprint, 1,800 square feet of paved paved area of the landscape. All of the pavements inside, except for the concrete surfaces, will be porous, reducing the amount from a sustainability perspective, reducing the kind of peak runoffs, and these deeper margins will allow this to kind of integrate to the landscape from the playground user's perspective, looking out, but also from playground park users looking in. So to go through the elements of the playground itself, there's the water feature, the central area, and then this very southern area. With the offset of this low 18-inch wall, we kind of contain playground use with a perimeter fence all the way around with a single gate at the entrance. This is the existing condition. This was a 5-foot steel picket fence. It gets replaced with a seat wall, a new vegetated edge along the perimeter with that wire fence that kind of weaves in and out. This margin changes as the pedestrian path and the east green, there's a fence within that. The fence is something we have used on a number of our most recent playgrounds. It's a very simple steel frame with a braided wire mesh infill, very, very transparent, and as the plants go up, becomes somewhat invisible. Our seat wall will be a combination of flat surface, and we will also provide seat arms and benches to make it more comfortable for caregivers in the playground. Another important aspect of the bench and the seat wall is it provides an opportunity to sit anywhere around the playground, including the opportunity to have sight lines as a kind of caregiver. One of the comments we've got about this playground is it doesn't have the sight lines, being able to move around and sit anywhere really kind of addresses that. So you can see the relationship between flat areas of the wall, which we use to sit, or really as a play element itself, places where we provide seating with back and an arm. And we intend in these kind of areas that there'll be nooks to have activity and play. Kids can play with Barbies, cars, or anything they want on that wall. The relationship between the playground and the park, you can see the steel picket fence where those trees were lost. It gets reworked with the vegetated edge. Our wire fence moves through there. And then this is our seat wall behind it, kind of softening the footprint of the playground from the Olmsted landscape while inside emphasizing the unique geometry of the Dagger playground. The water feature itself, this is the ramp that was built in the 90s. That would stay the same. You can see we infilled here by coming off this middle point of this, creating a ramp that goes up. Our intent is to actually demolish this tower, move it forward, which will allow kind of play 360 around it. There's a section of this wall that needs to be rebuilt because it's too low from a compliance perspective. That's the rebuilt wall. That's the new spray bollard off the wall that allows children to kind of circulate all the way around it, and nobody can reach over the wall and potentially fall. We rebuilt the amphitheater steps going down, which allows us to change the rise and run a little bit to coordinate with a transfer platform with a child in a wheelchair can dismount from their wheelchair and make their way down to the sunken area. The ramp will remain the same. As we get up to the top, we will redo the infrastructure coming into here and introduce ground jets, which will be used for operating, enlivening that space and increasing the amount of water play in the area. You can see how we've relocated that forward of the wall, and these walls get rebuilt as we go down with slightly higher elevation. This ramp gets rebuilt, which we can create kind of more play value in this area here and make this accessible. This will be an ADA ramp down to this point with a handrail. From here, it slopes, does not require a handrail. A child in a wheelchair will be able to make their way all the way down with a slight curb reveal on both sides. Water runs through the pavement down to the bottom, and instead of having a slope granite block, it's leveled off, and then with ground jets, so we have water play. And then there's a social play for both sides of the tunnel. The central area of the playground, we've reworked where the tire swings are to create one access, ADA access to one of them via sand carpet. One of the tire swings, which will be detailed kind of in the kind of bulky nature, with large diameter posts, steel cross beams on all the swings and all the climbers, consistent with the 1970s effort. One will be in sand. The rest of this will be paved with sand, this carpet impregnated with sand, which is fully accessible. Making all of these elements ground accessible, we've relocated the climber over to here to make this one large composite piece. This is a cable climber with wood, large diameter wood posts, and more in keeping with that original detailing of the 1970s plan. You can see this is the sand area. This one's accessible, and we provide a sand table in this corner here, which allows able-bodied children to, non-wheelchair children, I should say, to play within the sand. On the outside, a child can roll underneath and benefit from the neighborhood of play value of sand. The biggest change is really Similarly, in this very south end of the playground where we have reworked the pot swings and the tree house. The tree has been lost, and there was really no way to introduce a new tree because of the clear space requirements for the deck height of the first branch. In terms of the scale, will be off also. And singularly, the most comment we get regularly on every playground is, can you add more swings? Which was part of why we added those pot swings in the 1990s. In the 1990s, we only had space for bucket swings or for tots, 2 to 5. We now actually have the opportunity to introduce strap swings, which is actually the #1 most requested item. Can you add more strap swings for older kids? We can do it within that kind of geometry of the 1970s plan with the appropriate clear space all around. So now the entire playground is for 5 to 12-year-olds with 5 to 12-year-old swings kind of oriented in the north-south direction. This wall gets rebuilt with a slight climber and a transfer platform to make that slide down to this area here accessible. And that is the 72nd Street playground.
Ooh, record time. Thank you. Before we speak among ourselves, let's hear testimony. So first for the East 72nd Street Playground, we have Bridget Harmon.
I'm not sure where the appropriate place is. You can
You
come up
can
to
do
the
it.
front.
And you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Historic Districts Council would first like to commend Central Parks Conservancy on their proposed work on the West 67th Street Playground, noting the sensitive approach to working within its historical configuration. In reviewing drawings for both the West 67th and the East 72nd Street playgrounds, our committee felt that the same sensitivity employed at West 76th Street should be granted at East 72nd Street. Given the playground's oval shape dates back to the 1930s and Richard Datner's design was conceived within its framework, HDC would prefer to see the oval shape retained. That design continuity and connection to the playground's history would be a shame to lose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also record time. The next speaker is Max Yeston, and if you would like, I know you're speaking for both playgrounds, you can just follow one after another.
Okay, there's 3 minutes each, right?
Yes.
Okay. Max Yeston from Landmark West. Architect Richard Datner's East 72nd Street Playground is significant in that it illustrates the evolution of the American playground from isolated programmatic equipment to a design in which the total environment is integral to play and where the landforms and tactile elements encourage children to explore and engage in communal interaction and cooperative play and superimpose their own creative meanings onto the space. We understand that, as with other playgrounds, the forms and
like to comment on these? I would. What a surprise. First of all, thank you, Chris, for your always coherent, clear presentations. And I would just like to inform my fellow commissioners that Chris Nolan has now been made a Fellow of the American Society of Landscape Architects. I think in recognition of his remarkable work at Civic Park. So I think that some interesting points were raised. Some of them are obviously a suggestion to you, which I'm sure you will consider regarding the color of the and texture and finish of the concrete. I appreciate the comment about the singularity of the swings, but as a park designer myself, I know that that is a very, very high request. I mean, I think the good news here is that if for some reason swings go out of fashion, which they have not yet in the 50, 60 years that I'm aware, you can always use that real estate for something else. I mean, I think that you're not undoing something here that couldn't be altered in the future. So I think that all of the modifications being done that are, shall we say, permanent, are thoughtful, and those that have some programmatic modification can be modified should that need arise. So if there are no other comments, then would someone like to make a motion? We are approving 2 projects. That's both projects. Second, all in favor? Thank you. The meeting